Hello, my name is Matthew Shipley, and I have the privilege of serving on the Stoa Speech Committee. Now, the purpose of this video is to explain the basics of re-ranking as it relates to penalties in speech events. As you may know, in 2017-2018, the Stoa Board implemented a new penalty in speech events for overtime, and that affects every event except for the wildcard event of cold reading. Now, the implementation of the overtime penalty has increased the number of penalties that students have been earning at tournaments. And as a result, the Stoa Board felt like it would be valuable for people to better understand the process of re-ranking. In other words, how to conduct the re-ranking. So in this introductory video, we're going to be doing three things. First, we're going to be talking about some key concepts related to re-ranking. Then we're going to take a look at the specific guidelines from the Stoa Board about re-ranking. And lastly, we'll be walking through three specific examples for re-ranking scenarios that will help provide a basic understanding of how this works. So let's get started with those key concepts. First, the purpose of penalties in Stoa speech events is twofold. Number one, to positively affect the decisions that competitors make when they're delivering their speeches. And number two, to help ensure equity and a level playing field in each competition room. Now, a penalty that's earned by a competitor must have a real and direct impact on the outcome of the round, or else it has no effect at all for that competitor, and it does not reinforce the expectations that the league has and that are represented in the rules for each speech event. Now, the fundamental question is, who makes ranking decisions? Well, there is one set of decisions that the judge makes, and those decisions are recorded in the original rank column. So the judge decides in what order of rank the competitors are to be listed based on the quality of their performance, as if no penalties had been earned at all in the room. So in other words, based on how well they performed only. Now, there's a second column on the ballot, and that is the penalties in rank column. Now, what goes in that column is determined by the choices of the competitors and no one else. So if a competitor chooses to, say, go overtime in their event, or to use a script, or if they fail to state the author and title of their piece, then they will incur penalties. And it is the job of the judge to simply record those penalties in that column as a point of fact. Now, there are two more columns on the ballot. One is called re-ranking, and the other is called final rank. Now, there are no decisions at all to be made in either of these two columns because they are simply mathematical calculations. So let's talk about the guidelines for re-ranking that the Stoa Board has adopted. So first, in the final rank column, the ranks that we end up with must start at rank number 1 and then go down to the total number of competitors in the room. The second guideline is that if a competitor receives a penalty, his or her final rank must reflect that penalty. So to be clear, if a competitor has earned a penalty, then their final rank cannot be better than their re-rank. That's the number in the re-rank column. And there is an exception to this rule, and that is, or this guideline, and that is that no competitor may have a final rank that is lesser than the total number of competitors in the room. So in other words, if there are 8 competitors in the room, no one is going to have a rank of 9. They can only have a rank of 8 or better. And the third guideline is that in the event of a tie in the re-ranking column, then the competitor with fewer penalty points will win that tie. So with that understanding, let's take a look at 3 specific scenarios that will help people understand the basics of the process of re-ranking on the ballots. The first scenario we're going to take a look at is a simple scenario in which there are no penalties at all. So, since there are no penalties, I recommend that the judge go ahead and put a line down through the penalties in rank column to show that there were in fact no penalties and it wasn't a mistake. And since there are no penalties, there will be no re-ranking. Let's draw a line through that as well. And then it's easy. We just transfer the original rank over to the final rank column and we're done. So Micah is 6th, Raymond is 2nd, Heather is 8th, Jorge is 4th, Kendall is 1st, Addison is 5th, Thaddeus is 7th, and Nevaeh is 3rd. Now this second scenario is pretty simple as well, in that we will have only one penalty to deal with. And that penalty was earned by Raymond, who, it would seem, went overtime in his speech. Now, no one else earned a penalty, so we're not going to write anything else in these cells here, just to keep things clean and easy to read. Now, from here forward, all we need to do is math, simple math. And we're going to treat the blanks as zeros. And we're just going to add right across. So 6 plus nothing is 6. 2 plus 1 is 3. 8, 4, 1, 5, 7, and 3. Now look, we have a tie for third here. That's going to be important as we move forward. Okay, so the next step is to assign the final rank. So what we're going to do is look at the re-rank column and work from there. That's important. So we want to find out, do we have anybody who has a first rank in the re-rank column? Why, yes we do. That's Kindle. And we don't have a tie. No one else has first rank. So Kindle is going to take first. And we're going to look for second, and we don't have a second. So we need to move on in choosing or determining, who gets the second rank by looking at the tie for third. Now, Raymond and Nevaeh are tied for third, and we need a tiebreaker. And as you recall, that tiebreaker is that the person with lesser penalties breaks the tie or wins the tie. So therefore, Nevaeh is going to get second, and Raymond is going to get third, which is consistent with the guideline that I communicated earlier. And that is that Raymond, having a penalty, cannot end up with a final rank that is better than his re-rank. And he hasn't. He's gotten third here. So from there forward, we just follow the rest of the line as it shows up, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and we're done. Now what I want to note here is that with this one penalty, we only affected the final rank of 2 competitors, and that is Raymond and Nevaeh. And in this simple scenario, they simply switched places. So that's all there is to that one. Let's take a look at the next one. Now in this third scenario, we're going to see a more complex situation that is actually representative of real situations that we've seen in tournaments this year. So we have 3 penalties in this scenario. First, Raymond, who used a script in his speech, so he gets a 2 rank penalty for that. Jorge went overtime, 1 rank penalty. And Kindle both used a script and went overtime, so a total of 3 ranks in penalties. Now, from here forward, we just do the math. Remember, 6 plus nothing is still 6. 2 plus 2 is 4. It's just straight math going straight across. 4 plus 1 is 5. 1 and 3 is 4. And these come straight across like this. So the real work here is in determining the final rank. We're going to start with our first final rank, and we're looking at the re-ranking column for anyone who has a number 1 there and nobody does. So we're going to have to move on to 2. Well, gee, nobody has a 2. So now we're going to look for 3s. And we do have one person with a number 3 in the re-ranking column. Now the question is, can this person, who's Nevaeh, can Nevaeh get the first rank in the round? Well, does Nevaeh have a penalty? No, she doesn't. And therefore, Nevaeh can, in fact, get first rank in the round, and that's what's going to happen. Now we need to find our second rank competitor for our final ranking. And since we just finished with third and there was no tie for third, we need to look at our fourth. Well, we have actually 2 fourths. We have a tie for fourth between Raymond and Kendall. The question is, can either one of these competitors get a final rank of 2 in the room? Well, no, they can't, because both of them have penalties, and therefore they cannot have a final rank that is better than their re-rank. So neither of them can be better than rank 4. They could be lower than rank 4, but not better. So we need to move on and find our second final ranking competitor. So since we just looked at 4, we're going to need to look at 5. Well, we have a tie for 5th. We have Jorge and Addison. Now, Jorge cannot get the second rank in the final column because Jorge has a penalty. Therefore, Addison gets the second rank in the final rank column. Now, moving on from there, we are looking for our third rank, and we just finished with our 5ths. And we can't give third to either Raymond or Jorge or Kendall. And so we're going to move on to our 6th rank competitor in the re-rank column. There's only one of them, so Micah here is going to get third. Now, in determining who is the 4th rank competitor in the final standing, that allows us now to go back to Raymond and Kendall. One of these 2 competitors can conceivably get 4th, and they're going to. Which one? Well, Raymond has the lesser penalties, and so Raymond is going to get the 4th. Raymond wins that tie. Kendall is going to move on from there and get the 5th final rank. And then we can assign our 6th final rank, which is going to go to Jorge, who's next in line. And that's fine. Jorge couldn't have gotten 4th or better, had to be 5th or below, but in this case that works out fine. Then from there, Thaddeus stays with his 7th and Heather stays with her 8th. And that's the end of that scenario, but I do want you to note that this particular scenario affected the final standings of 6 out of 8 competitors, which is quite significant because we only had 3 penalties to begin with. But the way it flows out, 6 of them were changed around and only 2 of them remained where they started. So I hope that makes sense to you. It's an important process, again, that helps reinforce the expectations of the league for these speech events. And it's important to remember as judges that we start with the original rank. That's our decision. The students make the decisions about penalties in rank based on the choices they make. And then from there, it's just math, and it's as to how it flows out to re-ranking and then the final rank. If, as a judge, you're having any doubts at all about how to conduct this process, then we'd encourage you to take your ballot to ballot return for some assistance with the re-ranking process. I hope you found this video helpful, and I'd like to thank you for watching it. Please note that we are planning to post an advanced re-ranking video for people who are ready to learn more in depth about how this works, and certainly tab staff, ballot return staff, and tab directors should watch this advanced video that we're going to post. But it's open for anybody to see because we think that it's helpful for everybody to understand how this works.